Thank you, Alex. Very much appreciate it. Now, moving right along to our last item, item 7D, is Coliseum Development Management Agreement. And this is ticket facility fee and commissions. And city manager was to give us an update by the end of June. And this is our update. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hales.
Yes, we provided to you just a little memo. We have reached out, and we're still in the process of putting together a memorandum of understanding, which we will bring back to the council. However, that's something that is currently in the process of being worked out with the two attorneys, together with utilizing our finance and CIAM staff to help ensure that these items we mentioned are specifically addressed. I just might bring again to your attention in the Trade Commission, the current agreement does allow CIAM to take up to 10% commission on sponsorships, but they have voluntarily, during the life of this contract, only been taking a 5% commission on trade type contracts. And so we're working on to memorialize that in writing so that that is very specifically spelled out. There is trade agreements, and then there's cash agreements out there. So we think that we certainly feel that it's appropriate that we kind of, with their approval, continue that. And then we also provided additional information on the 50-cent parking fund allocation. Keep in mind that we no longer have a separate parking revenue fund. Right now, all our parking garages pretty much are in the general fund, and that was because these parking garages are not revenue generators. They do not turn a profit. They're heavily subsidized, both in initial construction and in operating costs on an ongoing basis. The benefits are more regional in nature, especially as we've seen in our own downtown. But we believe that the past history was they wanted to try and take part of the surcharge and divert it to be a revenue source to help with maintenance of the specific Pepsi Ice Center garage. Jeff Juergens has been instrumental in assisting us with this, as well as Patty Lynn. Again, this is an update, a status report, but we'll bring back the full memorandum to you in the near future. We'll be happy to answer any questions, or Mr. Juergens is here as well.
Alderwoman Stearns.
Thank you. And possibly Jeff Juergens, since I don't see anyone here from CIAM. My interest in this last time it came up at council when we talked about the hockey licensing and all was for transparency, that our citizens would really have a much better understanding of how we have a private company that is very dependent on city funds. So we have an issue of, you know, the privacy of a private company with the city being very, very much affected by how that business goes. And I did bring some questions. We got this item very late today, or just today. And my questions may be a little bit broader, but my concern is that the citizens really understand, essentially, you know, how management fees, how commissions are calculated, and what they actually are. And I'd like to just start with something that's here in the agreement. CIAM is entitled to take 10% commissions on sponsorship suites, advertising, etc. Is that right, Mr. Juergens? Is that exactly right?
Yeah, there are various provisions within the agreement that allow for commissions by CIAM, and if you look in there, there are several specific ones that set forth 10%. The trade commissions are not as clearly set forth, right. And so that's why, as part of their past practice, is to take in 5%, and we talked about the reasons that they take a little lower commission on that. But a lot of these other commissions are set directly at 10%.
Okay, and I did some math. So forgive me, but I looked at the 2013 report, which is the last full year that we actually have. And what I'm seeing is that indeed there is 10%, although I'm not exactly sure how it's calculated. Off of that report, I see $1.3 million in membership suites, sponsorships, and naming rights. And I believe that if we look to the 10%, we're looking over here at CIAM commissions. which comes to 158,000, which is just a little bit higher than 10%. But there again, there could always be a variance. I'd like to know exactly, where that 10% comes from. But here's even a bigger question. Okay, so we have CIAM commission, and then we have management fees. And if I've calculated, this is just a 2-page, it's pretty simple to read. If I've calculated the management fees, we're looking at total revenue 4%. And the revenue that we're basing that on is from the entire, all of the income, all of the revenue. And what I'm adding up, what I'm seeing here is that membership suites, sponsorships, and naming rights also go into the 4%. So we're taking 4% off all of this. That's our management fee. And then we're taking CIAM commission off membership suites, sponsorships, and naming rights. So it looks to me like we're taking 14%, but of course I'm only reading the report and doing some math, so who knows. I did write up some questions and I will pass them out to the council. I've already given them to the media. But for me, the concern, and I don't know if you have an answer on that.
No, I'll work with
John, yeah.
Patty Lynn back
Yeah,
there,
and that would be
we'll
great.
look at the numbers, right?
That would be great. I've kind of written them down here and even cited the numbers. A couple other things though real quick. I don't know that we have any way at all of auditing the concessions, but I do believe we own the software to do that. Is that a familiar topic to you?
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, I believe the city spent almost $200,000 on the software to audit the concessions, which of course another private company owned by BMI, but I don't believe we have monthly reports on the concessions. Are you aware of that, David? Or do you know anything about concessions?
No, I'm
Okay.
not aware of any
Okay.
monthly reports, but I am, as a council, we do audit the Coliseum
Right.
and CIAM each year in detail. And the
Right.
auditors get in and look at all the subsidiary ledgers, everything that goes into any of these numbers, whether it be commissions or management
Right.
fees. And the auditors are always a great resource as we bring
Right.
them here for the council to ask and see if everything is
And I
in
appreciate
agreement
that.
as they have determined.
Right.
those
Thank you very much, David. And we're fully aware that the auditor's report, it's great to address the sort of the in-kind trade-offs. I agree, it's very, very vague. But the auditor's report that I read at council, and I forgot to bring tonight, very clearly, yeah, these are great issues to bring up, but it very clearly says the commissions and the fees are ambiguous, undefined. I don't think we've even really defined revenue and how we calculate that. So, this is great tonight, and I'll certainly support it, but I really would like to see a hard look at exactly, for our citizens, where the CIAM commissions, where the management fees and all of that, how it's calculated, and frankly, what it is. Because even our salaries at $1.3 million going to the Coliseum, to me, look like a huge percentage of the total revenue, which is some $3 million something. So those are the kinds of numbers that, I'd like to see. And if anyone, I'll just put these in your boxes and give you one, Jeff, and I've already given one to the press. So look forward to some answers on that, and I will support this, and thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could,
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
just want to comment too. It's, we don't take ownership of this agreement. This agreement goes back to 2003, 2004. It's something we inherited. As we also pointed out, in about a year and a half, this particular agreement will expire. There will be some provisions for renewing that. We see a great opportunity for this staff and this council to be very involved in clarifying, being more specific, getting at many of these issues. But again, I think it's highly questionable, I think, as to how much we begin to try to re-justify this whole agreement, everything that is currently in place to arrive at these numbers. Once again, I think there's some improvement that can be made, but we are focusing on those two specific issues as the auditors defined in their management letter, and that's what we're bringing back to the council. Where I think the alderwoman is trying to, is raising a lot of questions,
Yeah,
but I don't think we
what Judy
have
was
the...
saying. I don't think she was asking for justification. I think she's just asking for some numbers.
Right.
And that's probably particularly important now as we move forward. But I'm going to turn it over to Alderman Lauer.
Yes, just as a follow-on, I think from
from a professional management standpoint, I just don't think we're getting what we're paying for here. Very, very thorough management, at least to our appearance. I would ask for a much greater detail and trend analysis year to year in terms of profit and loss and in terms of management fees and accruals that they're actually earning, or maybe they should be earning, or maybe they aren't quite earning, okay? And so I think it gets into really justifying the language that we've got to deal with for the next year and a half, trying to go forward, and then learning from where we've been when we write the next contract. It doesn't appear to me that we've really upheld the contract in some areas, and in other areas, the management may not be upholding the current contract. And so moving forward, I would hope that we could reach a much more well-defined agreement where we know exactly where we're going to be, they know exactly what's expected of them, et cetera. And I would like to see a little bit more in-depth analysis of the point of sale, which is what Judy was talking about. Private business has been using this for probably 2 decades now, and they can identify even income streams from each serving location and the time thereof, and they can do trend analysis in terms of what can be done to improve each one of those stations. And so I don't think we're even looking at that. I'm not sure that the management is looking at that. I'm not sure that they've even accrued those. And so we're not using the software that we purchased, okay? And I realize that some of this is classified, but there again, we could have management people inside our city actually looking at this and keeping that close to the vest, okay? So that we had a much better feeling in terms of our community and what we've invested in, okay, and what we continue to invest in, and whether it's paying off or how better may we help it to pay off. So those are just some basic thoughts, I guess, in terms of moving forward here. I'm asking for a lot more than we've been given, and I realize this is difficult, but again, we've gone through probably close to a decade of expense here, and we're not really seeing the return on investment that we would have typically expected. Okay, so I guess that's the critical side of things. Thanks.
Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just want to weigh in very briefly here. I appreciate the questions that we're asking. I think that they're the right questions, and I certainly understand David's approach here that this is a contract. I wasn't involved in selecting it in 2003. I don't know what the issues were at the time and why the council came to the decision that it did. I like to try to imagine that they have as good of intentions as we do today, and there were issues at the time that it seemed like an advantageous contract. That being said, it seems to me like we've gotten a lot of feedback from the public and the council of the direction that the agreement we wanted to go in, and in terms of accountability, in terms of the being able to trace where the dollars are flowing. So I'm very much looking forward to revisiting the renewal of that contract, and I'm looking forward to council participation in that because that's where we really can revisit a lot of these hard-hitting questions, and we should get as much data as we possibly can to the council and to the public, but being aware of the fact that we are under contract under certain things, and there are some things we're just not going to have an answer to, but that might be the staging ground for how we move forward for the next time. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now at this point then, do we have a